Alright everyone, welcome to CSC 300 Data Structures at DSU for this fall semester. I'm Chad Mitzel and I'm going to be your teacher for this class as we work through everything over the next couple months. I thought I would make this video just so we can kind of, go over the structure of the class a little bit, walk you through the D2L site, go over the syllabus, etc., and kind of get you guys a head start on your next steps, what to do, and what you should really expect during the course of this class. Right, you can see on the screen right now, this is kind of our just basic D2L layout. Same columns you see in most of your other classes. I've just kind of rearranged things a little bit. Right, so of course, we always have our news section here. I will, from time to time, post things in there, whether it be information about the class, cool websites I've found, etc. I will usually end up posting them there, so keep an eye out for stuff there. We have a fully populated calendar right now. So on the calendar you will find basically when all of the assignments are due, when drop boxes are opening and closing, all that kind of information can be found on the calendar if you head over there. At the bottom, we have all of the basic policy stuff that you've seen a few times already, but it's here for you just to review it if you need to. And then, of course, we just have some couple links. So we have a link to this directly to the syllabus. We have a quick getting started document, and then we also have this virtual machine link, which we'll get into in a minute. So I thought we would just quick go over the syllabus and kind of get that out of the way, and then we can start talking about some of the more interesting things. Right, so as you should all probably know, this is CSC 300 Data Structures. It is your kind of first really computer science-y class, right? CSC 150, 250 were really kind of just the intros to programming. So here's the syntax of C, and this is kind of how we build programs and make things run. This is the first class where we kind of start talking a little bit more about the theory behind how we build things, right? We can go ahead and just use all of the basic things you learned about in 150 and 250, arrays, lots of individual variables, that kind of stuff. But what you're going to find is a lot of times that is far from the optimal choice. So we're going to start looking at how we can actually take the information we already have and start kind of playing with it, merging it, and building these new structures that are actually much more efficient than a super naive solution might be, right? So that's what really makes this class interesting. Some important dates to keep in mind. Last day to drop and still receive your 100% refund is going to be the 31st of August, right? So if you decide you don't want to take this class, or it's just not going to fit into your schedule, make sure to get that taken care of before the 31st. And then later on, the last day to withdraw and still earn a W for your grade is going to be November 3rd, right? So just take note of those dates as we move through the class. Of course, this is an online class. My name's Chad Mitzel. This is my preferred email address, chad.mitzel@dsu.edu. That should be your kind of first route to try to get a hold of me. We will also make use of a application called Slack in this class, which is pretty much, in my mind, as good as email. It's kind of basically just a giant chat program that will let all of you students kind of interact with each other and talk things over and hopefully help each other, as well as ask questions to me that might be beneficial to the whole class. But emails will be coming about that, along with links to create an account and log into our Slack channel as well. So my kind of office hours, or when I can be kind of gotten a hold of, is typically going to be somewhere between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's because I work full-time as a software engineer currently at a research lab. So during your normal working hours, I will be kind of offline from this stuff. Occasionally I'll be able to check my email and respond if I have some extra time, but usually my responses will come later towards the evening hours. Right, so just note, if you email me at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, you may not get a response until closer 7, 8, 9 o'clock that night. So just keep that stuff in mind. Right, then we have the catalog description, which you can all go ahead and read. The hard prereq for this class is CSC 250. Right, so we cover a lot of basic C stuff in 250 along with some basic data structures that you have to have knowledge of in order to do well in this class, right? So make sure you have ideas behind basic defining functions, passing pointers around, using pass by reference, using dynamic memory, that kind of stuff. All stuff that should have been covered in 250. As far as textbooks go for this class, we're not going to use an actual physical book. Instead, what we're going to use is this actually really nice ebook from a company called Zybooks, and it's fully interactive. It has lots of activities you can go through and lots of really good animations to help hopefully make things a little bit clearer for you. Right, so that's going to be a required book for the class. I will show you information on how to purchase that in just a minute. I believe it costs about $49. If I find any other supplemental information for you, I will go ahead and post that to D2L so you can go ahead and use it and take note of it. As far as, effectively policies, attendancy and makeup policies, since this is online, this is very self-driven by you. It is really on you to take note of the deadlines, get the work done, and get everything in on time. Effectively, I just do not accept late work. All of the deadlines are out there for you right now, right away. So you should be able to work around any issues you might have with vacations or time off, etc. If there is ever a very extenuating circumstance, some family issue comes up, some health problem arises, we can work with that. But as far as just general late work goes, etc., I won't accept it. The dates are out there already for a reason, so you should be fully aware of that. As far as we have our typical ADA statement here. If you need any sort of accommodations for tests or other materials in the class, please contact success.center@dsu.edu. They will go ahead and work with you to determine what your needs are and how those needs can be met. And then they will be able to contact me with the official letter on what I need to do in order to accommodate you. So keep that in the back of your head if you need any of those sorts of accommodations. Yeah, we have our standard academic honesty statement here. Effectively, if I catch anyone cheating or I get duplicated work, those involved will just simply receive a 0 on the assignment. That's as far as I'm going to take it. Really, when you do this sort of stuff, you're really just hurting yourself, right? So I really hope everyone's going to be doing their own work and doing the best they can in the class. But in the end, again, this is all on you guys, right? You get out of the class what you put into it. We have our standard freedom and learning statement, university policy, etc. Some interesting communication info for you, just go into a little bit more detail on that. Again, the preferred initial contact with me is going to be through my DSU email. Do not send me D2L email. I never check that inbox, so if you send it there, I just will not see it. Make sure it's being sent to my DSU email if you do. And if you are sending me an email, please, please, please put this bracket, CSC 300 bracket, in your subject line. That will help me filter on my email and make sure that I see it and that it doesn't get buried and lost somewhere in the mass blob of emails I receive every day, right? So put that in there and it'll get sent to the top of my inbox. As far as response times go, I'm usually pretty good with email. You will definitely 9 times out of 10 receive a response within 24 hours. But if you send me an email late on a Friday night, early Saturday morning, or over a holiday or something, it might take me a little bit longer. It might take a day or two until I get to it. But overall, I like to pride myself on being pretty good on email, and I try my best to respond in as timely a manner as possible. As far as feedback goes, I will attempt, and it is my goal to give you grades and feedback within a week of your submission date. So as long as we're within that week of your submission, don't get too angsty if a grade hasn't been posted yet, but if it goes a little bit over a week, we're pushing 2 weeks and you're itching for your grade, just, make sure to bug me a little bit and I'll get it out to you. What else do we have here? As far as assessments and grades are going to go in this class is basically made up of like 3 different portions. Right, the first portion is all the assignments we're going to do. Basically, we have 10 assignments, each worth roughly 20 points. And then we will have 2 tests, each worth 100 points. And then at the bottom, to go along with the required Zybook for the class, inside of the Zybook is a lot of little helpful activities for you to work through to make sure you have the best understanding of the material as possible. And the combination of all of those activities will be worth 100 points, right? So fairly significant for not really a whole lot of work. So make sure you do those activities, right? I can pull reports on who's done what in there, so make sure you're completing them as you work through the material. You don't have to do every section in the book, but in the Dropbox, in the content section, I have files posted that say what segments of the Zybook you are responsible for that specific week, right? So make sure you pay attention to that. So overall, we have roughly 480-ish points in the class, depending on how things pan out. As far as grading goes, this is just going to be strictly points-based, right? So if you get 90 to 100% of the points, you'll get an A. 80 to 89.9% of the points, you get a B, then C, D, and then finally F. That's how we work. I don't really do any weighting or anything like that. We're just purely points based. And then as far as topics are going to go, we're going to do a quick linked list review. We're going to talk about the general concept of abstract data types and what they are and how we build them. We're going to talk about the algorithms associated with these abstract data types. We're going to talk a little bit about how do we determine a good data type from good as in an efficient data type versus one that may not be as efficient, and how do we measure these things, right? How do we determine that this method is actually more efficient or better than that method, right? So that's what this big O time complexities are. And we'll talk a fair amount about those. Then we go into lots of other data structures as well. We talk about stacks, we talk about different types of queues, we talk about a few different types of trees, we talk about how we traverse through the trees and store data in them and pull data out, etc. We talk about graphs and searching graphs and different algorithms associated with those graphs. Then we also talk about a couple smaller data structures that are just kind of nice to know and be aware of, things like heaps and hash maps, right? So that's the syllabus right there. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get a hold of me on that, and I'll answer whatever you might have there. So as far as how the course is going to work and where all of your materials are going to be at, basically everything you're going to need is going to be in either the content or the Dropbox sections of D2L. Basically, I have each week of the class has its own content section, right? So we have week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, along with the dates associated with that week, etc. And that is the material you are responsible for covering for that specific week, right? And inside of these content sections, I have a few different things, right? I have multiple PowerPoints in there. I have sample code listed in here. And then I also have a list of videos that I've recorded for you to watch. Most of these videos, I know it looks like a lot, I've got 7 of them right here, but the vast majority of these videos should be between 7 and 13 minutes long, so it's not a whole lot of time overall. There is the occasional video where I'm covering a review of an assignment, or perhaps walking you from step A to step Z through a specific data structure that may be longer. So there are several videos that are roughly 40 to 45 minutes, but those are somewhat few and far between. I tried to, for the most part, keep these videos pretty short and pretty concise. Right, so you just click on them, they will take you to the video player in D2L, and then you can go ahead and start going through everything. Right, again, this is all self-driven by you guys. I've just kind of given you the weeks for the material you are responsible for. Right, and then also you can see down here, right, so PowerPoints, code samples, video files, and then down here, if there are any zybook sections you are required to do that week, you will find a file called zybook sections in the content, and if you click on that, you will be taken to the file that says do these sections for this week. So for instance, for the first week, you're responsible for sections 1.1 through 1.9 in the zybook, right? So I will not check the zybook completions week by week. Basically, I'm going to have 4 check-ins for the zybook materials, which I've listed in the Dropbox. And those are the points at which I will check for completion, right? So I'm going to check on September 8th, September 22nd, October 6th, November 3rd, and December 1st to check for all of the required, check the completion percentage for all of the required sections for everybody. So those are kind of your deadlines for when you want to get the zybook materials completed by. Right? I know you could wait until the deadline and then do them all, but I would not recommend that. I would definitely do them along with the materials as you're working through the videos, looking at the sample code, etc. Right? This is definitely a programming intensive course, so there's going to be a lot of sample code provided, and a lot of my videos are just going to be showing you things in text editors, working with code, compiling it, showing it run, etc. Right? So it's very important that you stay on top of this stuff, and also really, to be successful in the class, you're going to have to dig into the code a lot. Right? That's kind of my goal, is to get you in the code, get you messing around with the code. You know, don't be afraid to break things when you're writing up programs for this class. You know, kind of explore and play around and see what the results are when you try this versus that. That's really how you pick up a lot of these programming examples, right? So this is kind of how our course material is laid out. So to just reiterate, you know, go to each week, do the materials for that week, and then you can move on. If you want to work ahead, you'll be able to work ahead, etc. Or just keep chugging along week by week as you prefer. If you find a content section that does not have the zybooks file in it, like week 7 has no zybooks file in it, that means there are no sections in the zybook you are required to do for that week, right? Just so there's no confusion about that. Alright, so that's where you are going to find all the content for the course, right? All the videos, all the notes, all the sample code, etc. will be in the content section. Okay, then we also, of course, have our Dropbox. This is where you will go to find all of your assignments. And effectively, I have an assignment due basically every week. The assignments are all pretty small for the most part, just mainly hitting the topics covered in the previous week. So if you notice here, the first assignment is not due until September 1st, right? So that gives you a full week of class to kind of get caught up on the videos and get spun up, answer any questions you might have about how to do this or that in C or C++ because you can't remember it, it's been a while, it's been the summer, etc. Or in case you're having any issues with your development environment, we can get those all worked out. And then the following week, week 2, will be when the first assignments actually due, right? So September 1st kind of kicks off the first go for the assignments, right? So September 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th, 6th, 27th, 3rd, etc. are going to all be due dates for assignments. And then, of course, over here we have our tests, we have our midterm and our final. Those will be open for a week at a time, and they will either be unlimited D2L tests, or they will be just Word docs that you will download to your computer. We'll kind of see where we're at when we get there, but either way, they will be a pretty much unlimited time, open note, etc., as long as you get them in within the week time period. Then you can see here we also have this projects tab, and this is kind of a combination. I've kind of combined the last 2 assignments, A9 and A10, into one large assignment. which will be due as the very last thing on December 1st. Right, so this is where you go to pull your assignments down as they open up and as you want to do them. But just remember, these are all hard due dates. Everything will be due at 11:59 p.m. Central Time to these drop boxes. Right, so make sure you pay attention to all of that. Trying to think what else we got, if there's any more content or Dropbox stuff. I don't think there is. So you're probably sitting there wondering, okay, great, he just spouted off all this information to me, but how do I actually get going with the class, or what do I need to do? Well, that's where we have our nice little getting started document right here. Right? So for this class, you basically are going to need some sort of Unix-like development environment because we're making use of GCC and G++. That means you could use Cygwin on Windows. You could potentially use MinGW on Windows. You could use just any standard Linux box you have laying around, or even any standard Mac OS box that you have. But to make things easier for pretty much everyone involved, and also to remove any issues that we might run into with compilers and people doing weird things in their code that one compiler accepts and another compiler doesn't accept, what I'm doing is I'm going to put out a standard image for everyone to use. And this is the image that I'm going to be using to compile your assignments on. Right? So what I'm basically getting at here is you should pull down this virtual machine to your computer, install it, run it, etc. You can initially build your assignments and run your assignments in whatever you want, but when you submit them, they need to build on this Linux machine that I am providing you. Right? That is the golden standard to compile against. Right? Because not all compilers are built the same. Some compilers will throw errors on certain things that other compilers won't. Right? So if you build your computer using Cygwin on Windows, and then you do something weird that the Cygwin version of GCC accepts, or a better example would be something like Clang, something that this other compiler accepts, but the compiler on the VirtualBox does not accept, right? I'm going to dock you points for that and flag it as a your code doesn't compile, right, error. Okay, so make sure of that. So if you want to make sure your code will compile and run correctly, you need to compile it on this virtual machine that I'm providing you. All right, so the easiest way to do all of this is you basically go to this link, you install a program called VirtualBox, you open VirtualBox, you go ahead and you are going to download the virtual machine from the content section. All right, so if we go to content, and we go to getting started, you see this link for the class virtual machine. You'll click that. That will take you to where you need to go to download the machine. So download VirtualBox, download the virtual machine, install VirtualBox, and then you go ahead and import the virtual machine into VirtualBox so you can run it. And that's simple. All you do is click File, Import, click on the file on the virtual machine you just downloaded, click the green arrow to power on the machine, and you're good to go. And the username and password is simply user and password1 exclamation point with an uppercase P. Pretty simple, easy to use. Once you're in there, it's just a standard Linux computer, so you have a terminal, you have GCC, you have G++, etc. Everything that you've probably already seen before. As far as the actual Zybook goes, what you're going to do to get that is go to learn.zybooks.com. And then there, it will ask you to go ahead and register yourself and provide a code for your specific class. And that specific class code is going to be DSU CSC 300 Mitzel Fall 2017. Throw that in there. Click subscribe, and you'll be given access to the materials. I believe the cost is $49 this semester, and that gives you access through about the middle to end of December. I'm not 100% sure when the cutoff date is, but it is very much towards the end of the year. Alright, so that's really all you need to do to really get started in the class. Once you have that stuff, you're pretty much free to go ahead, jump into the content section, and start working through the materials for each week there. Otherwise, I think that's pretty much it. Uh, Again, you have all of the same information I already kind of talked about in our news item here, so you can go ahead and read that if you want. And then, of course, like I had said, we'll be making use of Slack for the class. Emails will be coming out to you for that with your user accounts, so you can go ahead and log in there and start chatting around and interacting with each other a little bit. Hopefully, we make use of it. I think it's a pretty good tool, especially for collaboration between lots of people across lots of different areas. So hopefully we can use that quite a bit, and hopefully it will be helpful for everyone. But really, I think that's about all I have to cover in this video. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get a hold of me. I don't want anyone to think they're going to have it that I don't want anyone to think that there's an issue they can't solve because they can't ask a question, right? I'm fully open to all the questions you guys have. Just let me know and we'll work through any issues you might have. So with that, that's really all I got. So we'll see you in the next video.